Fifi. Sherry was 3 pages of print and took a half an hour-ish. Or excuse me, she was 2 pages. Fifi is 3 pages, and I don't even talk about the Sprinkling Fifi tour. I've left that to the very end, and I'll do something with it, but that was such a something that it alone could take a few 30-minute slots. So, Fifi. Fuck. She's dead. Fuck. 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 While I was writing and editing this little document, I ran across a 4-page letter I wrote to an old, now ex-friend, Barb Lamori. Barb, 81 days after Fifi's death, asked if I missed her. My reply runs about 4 single-spaced pages. And the Fifi section of this memoir arguably runs too freaking long as it is, so I'll carve that off into a separate video, and I'll send it to you guys and her to determine whether my grandkiddos should read it. And also, she's free to edit anything that would be appropriate. So, capturing Fifi. I put together what is still legendary among those who know me, my 3-pronged marketing attack after Sherry fired me. And the 3 prongs were my top 10 list. I had met gazillions of interesting women while I was in CPA life, especially. And so I put together a top 10 list of the best candidates in my eyes, knowing nothing about where they were in life, married with 8 kids or single or lesbian or whatever. So, top 10 list. Guess who was number 1? Yes, indeed, Fifi. Part 2 of the 3-prong marketing attack, friends and family. In other words, hey, I'm single now, give me your top 1 or 2 candidates. That went pretty well, and it makes sense. One of the best resources was the dude who styled my hair, cut my hair, Joe Kubat. Now, again, hindsight makes total sense. All he sees all week is women needing a little hairdo. So that worked out pretty well. And then the third thing, we didn't have Match.com and its ilk back in those days. What we had was the personals in the Omaha World Herald. They were the entire back page of the living section. And you'd write some little blurb in there. It couldn't be very darn much. They had limits on number of words or something. And I think you had a number. And if somebody was interested, they'd like respond to the World Herald. They'd send you a message, some crap like that. So, three-prong marketing attack. Why was she number one on my list? Well, one reason, if you've ever seen a picture of her, very easy on the eyes. We met at Rod Cush Furniture. I was doing my CFO services gig for Rod, and she was in charge of payroll and customer service and Rod's executive secretary, which I think I'd touch on later. But she handled payroll. That was half of what I needed. So I worked with her. We were friendly. We had a few yucks. We went to lunch even one time. And before we left for lunch, she tosses me her keys. Like, let's go to my place. Years later, she didn't even remember doing that and said, "Oh my God, I must have been so nervous." You wouldn't know, but that's what she said. So, I get divorced. She's number one in my top 10. I contacted her with a letter to what I assumed was her address, but wasn't sure. In the phone book, we used to have phone books, people's addresses and phone numbers with their name. There was an A period Ring. Now I knew her name was Amelia Kathleen Ring because I had seen it, a handful of times in their payroll records. So I write her a letter, and there are 3 questions in it. And I sign it as somewhat interested. And it starts out, the first question was, would your first name be Amelia? Well, obviously that's somebody who knows who the hell you are at some level. And a couple other things. Somewhat interested. She writes back, yeah, it's Amelia. Number 2, are you some kind of insurance salesman making an unusual pitch? And she signs hers, yes, you're interesting, something like that. I got a post office box at the Waterloo post office. By that time, I was living on Timber Lodge Lake in my little 2-bed, 2-bath place. Got a P.O. Box, P.O. Box 17. And we corresponded to the P.O. Box for, 2 years probably, even after I had moved. That was just kind of the thing we did. Early on, so I called her up, blah, blah. She says, I just got out of a relationship. I can't date right now. And I said, okay, why don't we write each other letters? And you know, when you're ready, let me know. So we wrote dozens of 2-page, 3-page, 4-page, single-spaced letters in lieu of the early dating stuff that you do, the life story junk and more. And I also wrote her several introductory poems. So, finally it's time to go out. I go to pick her up at her house in South O, and she opens the door, and I start laughing. She says, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, "You're a complete Fifi." And she gets kind of pissy and says, "Fifi, that's a dog's name. If I'm Fifi, you're Sparky." And I think she had a cold, as you heard. And why a complete Fifi? I mean, you open the door and it looks so woman, it's ridiculous. I mean, literally, you young peeps have probably never even seen these doilies on her end tables and such, where she had lamps which didn't have boring ass lampshades, they had cheeky lampshades. So at that moment, she became Fifi, I became Sparky, and I kid you not, I would have to press to find one time in 5 years that one of us didn't call the other by those names. I mean, that was just it. We were at that lake, and excuse me, I had a nice little dock out in the water with a swing thing, and I said, you know what I really miss about being married? And what? And I said, I miss the closeness. And anyway, the closeness fairly quickly developed beyond that. You know, hand holding. Okay, got engaged, as I said, in a hot air balloon. We got married in Vegas. Monte Carlo Casino had a wedding chapel, and there are numerous ones there. The reason we did it there, you could either get married same day or day after. So, kind of a drive-through marriage situation. We then took a 17-day honeymoon, and it was in one of my many RVs, and we went 7,000 miles in 17 days. That works out to like 400 miles a day. And people said, well, Jesus, did you see anything? The only time we spent more than an overnight somewhere was at a condo on Lake Erie, which was cool. Condo was nice. Lake Erie was just awesome. One of the Great Lakes, of which there are 5. Another little story. We bought 2 VW Beetles, or Bugs. Mine was black. I wanted to try a VW Super Beetle Turbo, and that turned out to be a pretty good purchase. There was so little weight to those things that even though it was only 160 horsepower, it was a stick, and holy crap would that thing fly. No, I said mine was black, hers was silver. Another Phil Dawson classic. We went to the VW dealership together. She saw my black one, and we took it out for a little jamming test drive, and she said, oh, I'd really like that silver one, decked out exactly the same. All right, so yet another spoiled female. This one, however, appreciative, but remember, it's in that magical first 5 years. Her, or my song about her, a big rock band back in the 70s was Bachman Turner Overdrive. You ain't seen nothing yet, baby, and several others. Believe it or not, their versions were better than what you just heard. I know that's shocking. So, Bachman had a son named Tal, T-A-L. Tal Bachman had a song called She's So High, and it talked about your 5 senses and how she was kind of perfect in all those different ways. Now, this is freaky. In fact, this is very freaky. I'm writing that line and editing this memoir during a break in the cruise action. So I'm on the ship, typing away, and what comes on? That song. God, that makes your skin crawl. How spooky is that? I had just written Tal Bachman, She's So High, and that starts playing. Woo! Fifi and I got a little ride in a nuclear submarine that was based in Seattle. I don't even know that I want to tell that story. I mean, shit. Everybody has ridden in a nuclear submarine. What a life! The way this worked, I'm in a meeting at the Greater Omaha Chamber of Commerce, and Larry Gomez, who ran all the business stuff, like consulting groups and one thing or another, walks in on one of our meetings and he says, hey, the Navy sent some of their brass bigwigs to Omaha, and they got to fly on the Air Force's Looking Glass, which is the jet that the president will be in if there's ever nuclear war or we're under attack or whatever. On 9/11, Bush quickly ended up in Omaha, Nebraska on Looking Glass. So these Navy general mucky mucks flew in that plane. And they said, well, we owe you a favor. Why don't we take some Omahans on a little trip on one of our nuclear submarines? So Larry says, so would anybody be, he got to the word interested, and I think he got out before I went, whoa, I'm in. I am in. So we took a little ride on a nuclear submarine. It, dove X 100 feet, surfaced. Before it surfaced, we got to look through the periscope and see what's up there. It was cool. And they showed us where the nuclear warhead missiles were. And I came to understand that their mission is deterrence, not offense, and their goal was to be 100% quiet. And the way this worked, we have an undisclosed number of these nuclear subs around the globe in areas maybe a little more prone to bad news than others. And they sit and are quiet. And the idea is nobody else on Earth, outside of the few in the U.S., knows where they are. But they know they have live nuclear warheads. And so they're a deterrent. While we were in Seattle, we got engaged in a hot air balloon. Not much that needs to be said about that outside of it was off season. I think it was April. And you don't go ballooning in April. So I called a couple of places up, and I was getting hell no as a response. So the third place, I said, look, I've already called 2 places. I understand it's out of season. I need this to happen. What if I pay you X? And X was a big enough sum of money. He immediately said, when do you want to go? So we were up in the air. A real sleeper if you're looking for a day trip in Nebraska, is Ash Fall Fossils State Park. Probably 3 hours west in Nebraska. Reason it's interesting, there was X bazillion years ago a volcano in our neck of the woods, and the volcano erupted, and ash covered everything X number of feet deep. Well, one thing it covered was live animals native to the area. So you're not going to get mastodons and brontosauruses, but you had these kind of cow-sized, maybe even a little smaller, pig-sized critters. And archaeologists had cleaned all the ash off them, and good God, it's amazing. Not like the typical fossil that you would see that's, hard to make out what it is, and it's missing bones and one thing or another. These suckers looked like they just laid down for an afternoon nap. So really a cool thing to see. Well, on our way there, I was working on our wills. Classic Phil, I had a driver and I have my computer here and I'm typing away. I'm in the middle of that, and I said, Fifi, and she said, what, Sparky? What if we made a promise to each other that whenever one of us dies, the survivor goes on a trip to everywhere we've been as kind of a memorial service? Spark, that's a great idea. That's where the Sprinkling Fifi promise was made. Ryan and Eric, you know about this. I'll get into why. Fifi's mom died of breast cancer at about age 50. Fifi and I were together in the mid-40s age. And one time she went to her doctor, and the doctor said, Kathy, he didn't know her real name, Kathy, we should talk about this. If you told me you were going to take a flight out of Epley, and I said, oh, don't do it, there's an 80% chance that plane is going to crash, you wouldn't do it. Well, I'm telling you, you look like you have an 80% chance of breast cancer, given family history and some other whatevers. So, the decision was, do you chance it and do nothing, or do you have what's called a prophylactic double mastectomy? Prophylactic the word means basically protecting yourself before something happens. If you look up the word condom, I don't even know what that means, what it is. If you look up the word condom, one of its synonyms will be prophylactic. So, we talked about it, and I said, you know, I would rather have you alive, even if you looked a wee bit different, than have you looking good up until the day you crump in 10 years. So she had him. Ryan and Eric, and Adam, if he was here with us, know that Fifi had what are called hematomas, meaning blood accumulation. Her remaining breast tissue started hemorrhaging, and you're talking purple breasts. Well, she wanted me to take pictures of this because obviously she was upset and thinking about suing. So I snapped 2 or 3 pictures. Well, I come to find out years later that 3 sons of a person who will go nameless even as he talks on this video did a search for JPEGs .jpg. It's a type of picture. I doubt it even exists anymore today. And they must have known, not thought, known that I had some form of naked pictures hiding out there. So they hunt this up, and there's Fifi looking like somebody took a bat to her chest. So, you know, a beautiful love story. My son's getting involved in the surgery. And she had reconstructive surgery. Surgery was a success. Okay, we are at 33 minutes. I have 4 more one-liners, and then I can get into her death and some related stuff. So I'm going to whip through these. Fifi's sister, Lenny, contracted pneumonia. Lenny's last night on Earth, I came back from Oklahoma to be with her and Fifi because we knew it was imminent. Long drive. I get there. Oh, shit. I just could not take it. Lenny, I mean, it's hard to describe. She had fluid in her lungs, which is what pneumonia is. And when she'd breathe in and out, it would like crackle, and I couldn't take it. Well, Fifi, bless her heart, stayed there until the bitter end. That leaving was one of the bigger mistakes of my life. Shoe on the other foot, I would want it done differently. She and I went to the Field of Dreams in Dyersville, Iowa. Looks exactly like in the movie with Kevin Costner. Just one place we went. When we were in one of the RVs, our dogs, Oprah and Harpo, would sit up on the dashboard, which was 3 feet long, so easily accommodate them, and that's where they rode. They enjoyed that. And Fifi would read history books out loud, and for the life of me, the name of the author is on the tip of my mind, and I can't come out with it. Then, I particularly liked this one. I was in the hot tub out at this small place at Timber Lodge. She gets home from work, and how long are you going to be in there? And I said, shit, I don't know, an hour all night. She kicks off her shoes and hops into the hot tub completely clothed. Absolutely cracked me up. And we ended up that night being in that hot tub the entire cycle of the moon. We saw it when it took off all the way across the sky till it landed. Oh my. Okay, next up, some dead Fifi stuff.